and today's date is September the 7th, 2016. We're continuing our examination of Psalm 15, and we're down to verse 3. He that backbiteth not with his tongue, nor doeth evil to his neighbor, nor taketh up a reproach against his neighbor. And in verse 3, it continues, God is continuing to list various characteristics of a true believer in this verse by stating the opposite of what the reprobate or unsaved man does by nature. A backbiter is a person who speaks spitefully or slanderously of the character and reputation of a person behind his back, which is particularly offensive and a cowardly way to treat a person. That is the nature, however, of unsaved people. And God will cut off the unsaved, and they will be consigned to death and annihilation, as we read in Psalm 101, verse 5. Whoso privily slandereth his neighbor, him will I cut off. Him that hath an high look and a proud heart will not I suffer. God includes backbiters in a long list of despicable sins, describing the characteristics of the unsaved in Romans 1, 28-32. And even as they did not like to retain God in their knowledge, God gave them over to a reprobate mind, to do those things which are not convenient, being filled with all unrighteousness, fornication, wickedness, covetousness, maliciousness, full of envy, murder, debate, deceit, malignity, whisperers, backbiters, haters of God, despiteful, proud, boasters, inventors of evil things, disobedient to parents, without understanding, covenant breakers, without natural affection, implacable, unmerciful, who knowing the judgment of God, that they which commit such things are worthy of death, not only do the same, but have pleasure in them that do them. The second characteristic of a believer in verse 3 is described by the phrase, nor doeth evil to his neighbor. And the Hebrew word for evil is Strong's number 7451, and it occurs over 600 times and is usually translated as evil, wickedness, and wicked. The Strong's number for against his neighbor is 7453. And we find it, for example, in Zechariah 8, verse 17. And let none of you imagine evil in your hearts against his neighbor, and love no false oath, for all these are things that I hate, saith Jehovah. Also, if we go over to the New Testament, to Romans 13, 8 through 10, we read there, owe no man anything but to love one another. For he that loveth another hath fulfilled the law. For this, thou shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not bear false witness, thou shalt not covet. And if there be any other commandment, it is briefly comprehended in this saying, namely, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. Love worketh no ill to his neighbor. Therefore, love is the fulfilling of the law. The third element here in this in verse 3, God says that a true believer does not take up a reproach against his neighbor. And this is another example of how a true Christian walks uprightly in the power of the Holy Spirit with his relationship to his fellow man. The Hebrew word for taketh up is Strong's number 5375, and it has many different shades of meaning, and it might possibly be better translated as lifteth up in this context. In other words, a true believer respects his fellow man and does not lift up a reproach or takes up a reproach, that is, to heap scorn or shame upon others. And, a good reminder for all of us is Ephesians 4:29 in this regard. Let no corrupt communication proceed out of your mouth, but that which is good to the use of edifying, that it may minister grace unto the hearers.